Back in 2020, I told you that the DJI Osmo Action is the perfect vlogging camera. I built a vlogging rig for less than $400 and I still use that setup today. However, a month later, GoPro launched a new camera which looked a lot like the DJI Osmo Action. The GoPro Hero 9 Black, and I just couldn't help myself, so I bought one. Which meant I owned the two best action cameras on the market. Now, 6 months later, I'm doing an honest review of these amazing machines, and at the end of today, I will be keeping the one that's best and getting rid of the loser. What up, nerds? I'm Jay Sharif, and I am very annoyed at the moment. Every big tech review channel on YouTube has been talking about the Insta360 Go2. It's the latest action camera from Insta360, and all the reviewers are gushing about how great it is. Bullshit! You liars! These people got sent a free camera 3 months ago. Some of them were given lots of free goodies as well, and a few of them even got paid by Insta360. And guess what? They unanimously agree that it's a fantastic camera. A lot of them even claim it replaces their old GoPro. Bullshit! It's a novelty camera at best. It has a battery life of about 15 minutes and a maximum resolution of 1440p. That's never going to replace a rugged 4K action camera with a 90-minute battery life. So, why are all these YouTube tech reviewers lying to you? You know why. Because they want more freebies and more sponsorship money from Insta360. So, they will lie to you, and it pisses me off because I think it's wrong. I will always give you my honest opinion, and I paid for these two cameras with my own money. So, I'm free to tell you exactly what I think, and today I'm doing an honest comparison between these two rugged action cameras. And I'll focus specifically on their use as vlogging cameras. I'm going to compare them in 3 main areas: video quality, audio quality, and usability. Those are the 3 most important factors when choosing a vlogging camera. But before that, let's compare the stats. The DJI Osmo Action is £200 brand new. The GoPro Hero 9 cost me £330. That's a huge price difference. The Osmo is just 124 grams, while the GoPro is both bigger and heavier. It comes in at 180 grams. The Osmo Action has a maximum resolution of 4K at 60 frames per second. The GoPro can record video up to 5K at 30 frames per second. Now, people are very easily fooled by the numbers sometimes, which is why marketing departments love to bamboozle you with stats. But in the real world, more resolution doesn't mean better images. 4K means 8.3 million pixels, whereas 5K has 14.7 million pixels. That sounds like a slam dunk, an easy win for the GoPro, right? Well, not necessarily, because both of these cameras have a tiny, tiny sensor, just 1/2.3 inches. Basically, that's 30 square millimeters in size. Now, you can't see the sensor in either the GoPro or DJI, but here on my mirrorless camera, when I take the lens off, you can actually see the sensor inside. This flat, colour-sensitive plate captures light and converts it into photos. And in general, the bigger your sensor, the better your pictures will be. It's not quite as simple as that, but it's a good rule of thumb. And that's why professional videographers don't use action cameras normally. Hollywood studios, TV studios, professional photographers, they all use cameras with much, much bigger sensors. So, these action cameras have a big disadvantage. A smaller sensor captures less light, and less light means lower quality images. Now, the next 60 seconds are going to be a bit technical, but try and stay with me, okay? So the GoPro has 14.7 million pixels spread across the sensor. The DJI has 8.3 million pixels spread across the same size sensor. Doing some simple maths then, the GoPro has 20 times 10 to the 7 square millimeters per pixel, and the DJI has 35 times 10 to the 7 square millimeters per pixel. If it doesn't make sense to you, look at it this way: 35 is bigger than 20. So, the pixels on the DJI are bigger, which means the pixels on the DJI can capture more light per pixel. So, it's not a simple matter of 4K versus 5K. It's quite possible that the video quality on the DJI might actually be better. We'll find out later if that's the case, but the point I'm trying to make here is, don't get bamboozled by things like megapixels and video resolution. There are many different factors that affect image quality. Continuing with the tale of the tape then, some of you might also be interested in slow motion capability. The DJI can shoot in full HD at 240 frames per second. The GoPro matches that and can also shoot in 2.7K at 120 frames per second. They both have a maximum bitrate of 100 megabits per second. That's an important number and an impressive number too. Basically, that tells you how much data the camera can record per second. However, to take advantage of that high bitrate, you need to make sure you're using a high-speed memory card. Ideally, you want a V30 memory card. Otherwise, your camera might start overheating or corrupting your footage. Those are common problems when the card can't cope with the speed of the data it's receiving. Both cameras have wide-angle lenses. The DJI gives you a fixed field of view that's 145 degrees wide, but if you turn on the stabilization and use the de-warp function, that reduces to about 120 degrees. The GoPro has multiple options, however. You can use Super View, which is 170 degrees wide. In addition, you can choose wide, linear, and narrow. I've talked about these in a previous video. Basically, wide and linear are very similar, but linear mode gets rid of the fisheye distortion. And linear mode is basically the same as the de-warp function on the DJI. I always use linear mode when vlogging because you get a nice wide shot, but without the weird wide-angle distortion. By the way, Super View is great for action shots, like when you're doing extreme sports, careening down a mountain or full speed on your motorbike, and it gives you a nice, wide, immersive view of the action. But using Super View for vlogging is very, very bad because your face will look distorted and kind of goofy. Both cameras are rugged and waterproof down to 10 meters or 30 feet. Perfect for swimming and snorkeling, but if you want to go diving, then you need to put them in a proper diving case. Both cameras have good battery life and will last at least 2 hours on a full charge. Both use micro SD cards, both can be charged via USB-C, they both have inbuilt video stabilization, and both cameras have a front-facing screen. They both have HDR video recording, they can both do time-lapse and hyperlapse recordings, and you can connect them both to your phone via an app. That's the headlines, but which one is the best in the real world? And which one will I be flogging on eBay? Let's start with the obvious category. There are plenty of cheap action cameras out there. I've even reviewed a few for you. But these two are the best of the best. You do have to pay extra if you want excellent video quality, and right now you can see that these two cameras are in a different league of quality to other rugged action cameras. However, it's worth noting that I'm mainly reviewing them for their vlogging capabilities. To keep things fair, I've set them both to 4K at 25 frames per second. I have image stabilization turned on to maximum. All the other video settings are in auto, with both cameras on de-warp mode, because that's exactly how I would normally vlog. Time for a low light test. It is a crisp, as in very cold, springtime evening in the UK, about 10:30 PM, 2 hours after sunset. As you can see, it's a moonlit night, and there goes a police siren, because That's the kind of area I live in. Oh no, it's an ambulance. I hope whoever that's going to is doing okay. So, both cameras in 4K, in full auto mode, 25 frames per second. How are they performing? Especially now that I've turned around and I'm no longer facing the street lights. I suspect they're not doing particularly well, but it seems the GoPro, at least on the screen in front of me, is doing a little better. How does it look to you? They are action cameras, tiny sensors, you can't expect miracles, but I suspect the GoPro is doing a little better. Sorry, DJI. So, what did you think? In terms of image quality, there isn't much in it. I'd say a lot of it will be down to personal preference. The DJI video looked more natural, in my opinion, but the GoPro video was a lot more vivid. Some people like that, and some people absolutely hate it. I personally prefer more natural colours, but overall, this one is pretty much a draw. And neither looked great. These cameras work best in good light, and that was obviously a typical British rainy afternoon. I love rock-steady stabilization on the Osmo Action. As I've discussed before, it's not quite as good as a gimbal, but it's pretty damn close, and I will never use a gimbal again. The Hero 9 has Hypersmooth 3.0, the third generation of GoPro's fantastic electronic stabilization system. Both Hypersmooth and Rocksteady are very similar, and they're both great, but what really changes the game is the horizon leveling feature in the Hero 9. Right, let's see how horizon leveling compares to what the Osmo Action can offer. Yes, see, it will go quite far before it can't level the horizon anymore, the GoPro. There we go. So, you know, it really does a fantastic job keeping that horizon level. I'm hugely impressed, even now, 6 months later. The amount of times I've started a video and realised the whole thing looks wonky, I can't even count, and it's the bane of my life. So, having horizon leveling built into the camera is a massive upgrade for me personally. It's only available in the linear mode, but I always use linear mode when vlogging, so that suits me just fine. And because of horizon leveling, I'm going to declare the GoPro Hero 9 the winner for stabilization. I've said many times on this channel that when it comes to vlogging, sound quality is actually more important than video quality. So it's great that both of these cameras have multiple microphones, and they're both known for having better sound quality than any other action cameras. And right now you're listening to the audio from the GoPro internal mics, which are pretty good, I'm sure we can all agree. And now I've switched over to the internal mics on the DJI, which also sound very good. However, these cameras aren't limited to just using internal microphones. Both of them also allow you to connect an external mic as well. The DJI has a teeny tiny microphone adapter that costs about £20. Unfortunately, if you want to connect a microphone to the GoPro, you have to buy the GoPro Media Mod. That's an add-on that costs about £80, and quite frankly, that's a rip-off. I was never tempted to get it, mainly because it suddenly makes this large Hero 9 camera even larger. Anyway, now I'm going to plug my external microphone into the DJI. What I love about the DJI microphone adapter is that it doesn't really change the size of the camera much. I'm hoping that you can hear the difference, and that what you're hearing right now is better than the DJI and the GoPro internal microphones. But is it? You can judge that for yourself. Now, because I'm hard of hearing, and that's not a joke, I'm genuinely going deaf, I am not the best person to judge that test. To my ears, the internal microphones on both of these devices did a good job, and you could easily vlog without an external mic. The good news is that they both have wind noise reduction as a menu option, although it didn't seem to work particularly well in that example. However, a sponge cover costs about £5, and it will probably do a better job. Electronic wind noise reduction is never as good as a sponge or a dead cat cover. Now, to my defective ears, the DJI sounded a little bit better than the GoPro Hero 9, and it sounded significantly better once the external mic was plugged in. So, to me, this category is almost a dead heat when it comes to audio quality, but I give a slight edge to the DJI because it's so cheap and easy to attach an external mic. So, the GoPro has better stabilization. The DJI has better audio. It all comes down to the final category. Now, usability is basically about how easy and enjoyable it is to use these cameras in the real world. Let's start with the size issue. The DJI is a tiny camera. Even when I put it inside a camera cage, it still feels quite small. The Hero 9, however, is the biggest GoPro yet. It's wider, it's taller, it's fatter, it's heavier. However, it doesn't need a camera cage because it has these convenient mounting flaps at the bottom. They're built into the camera itself, so it's really easy to attach it to many different mounts and accessories. And if you've owned an action camera before, the chances are you will have plenty of GoPro compatible accessories already. And these cameras both weigh about the same once I put the DJI in the camera cage. By the way, we haven't talked about the front screen yet. It's an incredibly useful tool for vlogging. Being able to frame your video correctly is a game changer for action cameras. Now obviously DJI did it first, then GoPro copied them, and now lots of cheap action cameras come with front-facing screens. The difference between these two cameras is that the DJI only lets you have one screen working at any one time. So you can either have the back screen on or the front screen on, and it's very easy to switch between them. The GoPro lets you have both screens on at the same time. A nice option to have, but for me, that's not a deal breaker because it's so easy to just double tap the DJI screen with 2 fingers and it will switch over very quickly. But now, it's time to tackle the 2 biggest differences between these 2 cameras. Firstly, let's talk about the menu system. Now, the DJI is a real joy to use. It's really nice and simple. Swipe down and you can choose your video resolution. Swipe left and you can choose your video and photo settings. Swipe up and you get your main menu. And you swipe right and you can see all your videos and photos. It is so easy to use the DJI menu system. Even if you put this camera in a drawer and then picked it up again months later, it would take you literally 30 seconds to get used to it again. So the DJI menu system scores very highly on usability. The GoPro menu system is not as easy to live with. It's not hugely complicated, but it's definitely more complex and a little less intuitive than the DJI. That's not going to be a big issue though if the GoPro is your main camera and you're using it all the time. The big issue with the GoPro is the terrible touchscreen. This is supposed to be the flagship GoPro camera, but the touchscreen on the Hero 9 is quite frankly offensive. A lot of the time it just won't respond to your commands, or there will be a big delay before it responds. Or even worse, it will get it wrong and do something that you didn't ask for. That's a big problem. But sadly, there is an even bigger one to worry about. The GoPro freezes regularly, and by that I mean it will just stop in the middle of a recording, at which point there's a good chance your footage will just disappear. You basically have to take the battery out to restart the camera at that point. I'm not the first one to mention this. Quite a few reviewers have brought up these issues before, and people have also mentioned that sometimes the sound and the video on the GoPro go out of sync, so your vlog ends up looking like some badly dubbed kung fu film. Now, GoPro were supposed to fix all of these problems with a firmware update, and I'm definitely using the latest firmware. However, all those problems are still there. In contrast, the DJI has never let me down. It always works perfectly. The menu and buttons are very responsive and it's completely reliable. So, in terms of usability, the DJI is far superior to the GoPro. And let's be frank here, if a camera is unreliable, if it constantly freezes and loses your files, that's not a camera worth keeping. Especially when you have a smaller, cheaper rival that is much easier to use and completely reliable. So, as a result, after 6 months of real-world testing, I am declaring the DJI Osmo Action a superior camera than the GoPro Hero 9. I will be keeping the DJI Osmo Action and I will be selling the GoPro Hero 9 on eBay. Right now, the best vlogging camera on the market is the DJI Osmo Action. However, I'm hoping that will change soon because what I'm really excited about is the forthcoming DJI Action 2. Now, there have been no announcements from DJI about this, and we have no idea when it's likely to be released. However, I'm hoping they'll release it this year, and that they'll keep all the good stuff from the first version. So, the menu system, the reliability, the usability, etc. But I also want a bigger sensor, and it absolutely has to have horizon leveling. If the DJI Action 2 had all of that, then I honestly don't think I'd need another vlogging camera for years. And quite frankly, I don't care about 5K. 4K video is already ridiculous in terms of quality and storage size. I'd rather have a bigger sensor and better quality 4K than 5K or 6K resolution. Anyway, that's the end of the show. I hope you found this useful. There are links in the description below if you want to buy either of these two cameras. Obviously, I'd encourage you to buy the cheaper and more reliable DJI Osmo Action, but you're free to make your own choice. That's all from me. I'll be back with another video very soon. Later, nerds!